The buckeye is a very striking, iconic butterfly that occurs over a lot of the United States, and it's quite a beautiful butterfly. And anyone who's traveled to southern part of the U.S. Has probably seen the buckeye. It's in old Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, Florida. It's all over, but we don't have it here. At least we didn't until this year. And that's why I'm doing the profile on it, is because it finally showed up right here in Washington this year. Buckeye, Junonia coinea. There's the eggs, very typical brushfoot eggs. They have these nice vertical striations, and the little core where the fertilization goes in is right in the center at the top there. Here's the first instar. Like many of the brushfoot type first instar larvae, it has proportionately very long hairs and a nice shiny black cap. The hairs originate at these little dome-shaped bullae that are all over the body. By the second instar, the little hairs now grow out of these little projections that stick us out of the same positions, but now there's multiple hairs that branch from those center points. It's really easy to tell the first instar from the second instar. Again, just single hairs, and then by second instar you start getting the branching. Third instar, we're starting to get the semblance of a stripe starting to form along the side, another stripe along the top. Hairs and spines are getting a little bit longer. And here's the fourth instar. This is almost grown. Now it's starting to get a nice handsome white stripe along the side and these yellow spots. And then we finally get to our final instar larva. Quite a handsome larva. These butterflies feed on snapdragons and quite a number of other natural plants. Of course, they're usually not found here in Washington, so I'm not sure what they would use here. John, would you have any ideas what they might use here?
Anything they want. Plantains, linum, toe flax. There's a bastard toe flax. Can I say bastard?
You just did.
Illegitimate is better.
I know they use quite a few plants in the wild, but of course they're just arriving here. One of these was found over at Twin Lakes, which is over in, what's the county?
Lincoln County.
Sorry?
Lincoln.
Lincoln County, yeah. And that was the first one. And then not long after, about another week or two later, another one was found down the Columbia River at Tri-Cities, in one of the islands that's in the river. So this year, we've never had them before in Washington. This year, there's been 2 sightings. So global warming at work. Here's the pupa, tied up with a bit of silk up here on one of the leaves. Kind of a, dare I say, ugly pupa, but it's pupa. And here's what the butterfly looks like, freshly emerged butterfly. On the ventral side, it looks very different. You don't see those big owly spots. It has this pink coloration or reddish coloration and some evidence of banding. And of course, dorsally, has these magnificent big bullseye spots. Quite a nice butterfly, and we'll probably be seeing more of this guy as time goes on. Here's one of the ones that was seen. This is a field photograph. Now, you don't have to take great photographs of some of these butterflies to document that they occurred in the state. This was the first one found here, and you can see it's clearly buckeye, even though it's not a very good photo. So that's our first bona fide recorded buckeye in Washington State. And here's the second one. This is on that island out in the Columbia River. Anybody know what that plant is there?
Loosestrife, isn't it?
It's loosestrife. Remember when they went to tag the monarchs this year? That's the plant that all the monarchs were on.
It's an invasive weed we're trying to wipe out.
That's right. It's an invasive weed. and yet it's used by quite a few different butterflies as a nectar source. Any questions?
I'm just curious, was it important that John take that as a specimen because it was a first sighting?
No, neither of these
Does
were
the
collected.
photograph work? Does the photograph actually, that's accepted?
For this sort of a specimen or species, yes, it's so diagnostic, there's nothing else you'd mistake for it. So, so yes, a photograph does work for this. Now, if it's a fritillary or a blue or something, a photograph of a new species probably not going to cut it. So they want a specimen. Yes?
Dave, I was in Virginia in September, and they were really, really abundant.
The buckeyes?
Yeah. And I've been there a few times, the same area, and I've seen them, but this year the numbers were really high, and I was wondering if you know anything about why their populations surge from year to year.
Thank you.
I can speak to that here. There's several factors that, are dictate how abundant any butterfly population is, but for a butterfly that disperses, an awful lot of it has to do with the dispersal events as they occur. If they are dispersing early on into a habitat that's, hostile, dry, or early, Missouri, even Great Basin, for example, they may not ever get a good, and it's not like they're continuously exploding from this one place. They all kind of move in a general direction. So failure in the first brood, will lead to a general failure. Now, to reduce that argument a little bit and talk about how these get here in the Northwest, they're coming probably from Northern California, all right? They don't have a widely established range in Nevada or Eastern California. So they expand from Northern California into Eastern Oregon and Western Oregon, and then find kind of a flyway all the way up into Washington. And that is what's significant, that the populations in Northern California are so abundant. That has been monitored. They are more abundant in Northern California than they have been traditionally. So that's where we'll get this.
They're found more commonly in Oregon. Down at the Oregon Northwest Lebs meeting, someone asked how many people here have seen the buckeye in Oregon this year. And everybody's hands went up, except mine, of course. I hadn't seen it in there. But yeah, Eddie?
I was just going to say that the Eugene chapter has indicated that they have a lot of sightings this year, far more than usual.
Right.
Big year for buckeyes.
Yeah, same principle. That adjacency to Northern California. That's where the main dispersal site. They overwinter there. They diapause there. They don't really diapause as any particular stage. They just kind of get through the winter as whatever stage. And so when weather breaks in the spring, which when we talked about earlier springs, they get a heads up and they get to going and they explode. The first record in Oregon this year was in May. That is extraordinary because all the records previous to that had been in, I guess it was one in late June, but predominantly July and August. We
had kind of a stinky year this year for butterflies. The early season, it got real dry in the shrub steppe, and we didn't have much butterfly population. In the mountains, it was much better. They didn't get so dry there. But in the late season, we had some interesting things. As you know from our monarch tagging expedition, there were a lot of monarchs this year, much more than normal in eastern Washington. The Mormon meadowlarks had a bumper year this year in eastern Washington. There were lots of them. And there was
this year.
There was another species that did real well in the late season. But anyway, these species like the buckeye are starting to come in. Last year there was another immigrant that came in that hadn't been seen before. That's the variegated fritillary, Etoidia claudia, and I think there were 2 sightings of that last year, weren't there? So we're starting to get these things in the state that have never been here before. Richard?
Where do they see the buckeyes most in Oregon? Is it eastern Oregon? And is it high desert and all of that? Or where do they have them?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's kind of, they had them all over Oregon this year, I think.
They have them in the Willamette Valley and all that?
No, the historic records are primarily east of the Cascades and in southwestern Oregon, but this year they had records even from the Willamette Valley. So this was an unusual year.
They had them on the west side too this year. That was quite a year for them.
So would we expect, as we see more of them, that it would be more a Columbia Basin kind of butterfly, or are they?
Probably, but you know, they're still we're way out on the far edge of the range, so it takes a kind of a special year for them to show up. And as the climate gets warmer, we'll see them more often. But we could go for years now without having another one, or we might start seeing them every year. We don't know.
There's always the hope that some butterflies will make it into the Puget Trough where winters are very mild. And things like the Sackler skipper, Atelopines campestris, and the buckeye, because these are butterflies that could endure our otherwise moldy weather, and because the winters are so mild, they would find enduring no diapause no problem here. So we could have buckeyes actually as a butterfly in Seattle, which would increase our butterfly fauna in Seattle like 20%.
Would they be able to overwinter here, or not?
Sure. You know, there's nothing to prevent them. That our winter temperatures, I think they're actually capable of getting down to like 20 degrees or something like that. I think Art Shapiro did a study on that, but yeah, we hardly ever get to 20 degrees, you know. So yeah, they wouldn't have a problem.
There's another species that may be working its way into the southeast corner of the state. It's
Hackberry.
Hackberry butterfly, right. What's the Latin on that?
Astrocampus.
Astrocampus, yeah. Celtus or Celtus. And that's been maybe glimpsed about 3 different times. People are reporting it as a maybe or a probable, but they're butterflies that go flitting by, and it could be one of several things. So we don't have a confirmed record yet. Same with Northeast Oregon. So keep your eyes open. There's some neat things happening out there. Yes.
A few years ago, volunteer pilot found a new butterfly in Blaine. I don't remember what it was.
Skipperview.
Has that taken hold? Has that been seen?
Oh yeah, it's all over Whatcom County, but we keep hoping it'll come south. Apparently, we're too moldy for it here.
I don't know. It hasn't gotten here yet.
Yeah, I don't know. It was, you see, I don't
Maybe
know.
like a little wind and snow.
Yeah,
Look, we don't have ringlets in Skagit or Whatcom County. You tell me why. I don't know.
That's the European skipperling, and it suddenly showed up all over Whatcom County. It clearly came down from Canada where it had been sighted, and it's moved into some of our wild grasses here. It was kind of notoriously spread in farm species of grasses, but now it's in this real tall
Canary grass.
reed canary grass. Which is all over the place. The highway department in past years planted it all along the freeways, and it's tall grass, big stuff, and they're using that. So there's a good chance it's going to show up down here one of these days. Okay, thank you.